Hey guys, my name is Sage. In today's presentation, we're going to be teaching you how to be more confident from a scalping perspective. It's quite difficult for you to determine support and resistance levels on the shorter time frame, so we're going to show you with some premium indicators that we use for us to set up these alert levels and also be successful long-term with our trading strategies. Don't forget that trading is 100% a mental game, so if you're not prepared and you don't know what it is you need to look for, you need to watch today's entire presentation 2, 3, 4 times over. So don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you guys on the other side. All right, now can you really go off of just certain levels when you're trading? And really my argument for today is going to be yes. So later on in the presentation, I already want to preface this. You're going to see a lot of colors on my chart. There's quite a few. Now, the levels that I'm going to show you, they're more mathematically based. We can share the information. It's actually open. It's incredibly open information. The way that these support and resistance levels that you'll see on different time frames, the way that they're mathematically calculated is based off of Fibonacci levels, and it's also going to be based off of very, very complex algorithms. You don't have to have a mathematics degree in order for you to just find the support levels on some of the stocks that we normally trade, mainly the indexes, right? Of course, we're looking at AMD, NVIDIA, things like that, Apple, Microsoft. But realistically, you just have to understand how to drive the vehicle. You don't really need to know how the combustion engine actually produces energy in order for you to navigate, right? Just driving a car analogy, right? So just knowing how the indicator works is going to be enough for you to profit off of it, right? You don't want to be overly technical as a trader. I found this early in my experience. When you have too many things going on, or you have too many things that are going to incapacitate you from making decisions, that's usually not a good sign. You want to look for 3, maybe 4 confirmations of a specific level or engagement, and then you want to attack it. And then you also want to have a plan of jump ship, right? Which is going to be your stop loss plan, your specific levels. These are just a couple of trades that I've taken recently. As of late, I've been scalping a little bit more, but scalping again is not my primary function. However, I do it quite a bit off to the side, right? The scalping trades that I'm usually going for, this is just, a quick screenshot. These are not scalping trades, but these are more shorter time frame trades. When I'm looking at my scalps, I'm normally living within the vicinity of about 1 to 3 DTE. So 0 DTE, everything that I'm going to show you today is applicable to 0 DTE. However, for me, just for my personality and also for my risk appetite, I would prefer to give up a little bit of that explosiveness for the Greeks that you have for the short term, for us to have a little bit more sustainability and less explosiveness on those contracts. So I'm going to be anywhere between a 1 to 3 DT person. I'll talk about that extensively when we jump into the broker here. To voodoo or not to voodoo. So you guys, as I'm talking, you guys can just read through this. You're going to have 4 lines that are on your chart, right? So I'm going to try to expand on this as much as humanly possible. You have 4 lines of particular support and resistance levels. The way that you can start thinking about these support and resistance levels are magnetized levels, right? So we have a tendency to start trading into these zones for a potential pivot in either direction, either breaking below, breaking above, so on and so forth. But this is going to take a little bit of the guesswork out of the task of you doing technical analysis, because if anyone has been trading for any amount of time, we all know that we spend some time there on the charts. Sometimes we focus on 2, maybe 3, 4, 5 charts. For me, in my case, it's way more than that. But if I'm focusing on these charts, I want to make sure that some of these levels are already mathematically calculated, right? So the more math, the more support that I can have on something, the better I think you are equipped to start looking at potential positions, either long or short. So does it mean that we're going to hit that level and then we're going to specifically bounce off that zone? No, not necessarily. However, you're a little bit more equipped, right? So it's kind of like you being in a dark room. Instead of you having, tunnel vision, you have a little bit more light in that overall space because you have some guidance, because you do have more of a technical base for you to start positioning yourself for either a long or a short. And you'll look at some of the levels here when we jump specifically into SPY, Qs, IWM, so on and so forth. So they have rankings to them, right? So the highest ranking, or what we call the strongest support or resistance level, is going to be the fire line. This is going to be red. Next is going to be the tree line, snow line, and then violet lines. If you've ever spent any amount of time in our Discord group, you've heard these terms all over the place, and you see them on my charts, and you definitely see them on the morning charts, right? Because we use these extensively. Now, this is not the only thing that we use. We also like to use our stacks. We use EMA stacks. So for me in particular, I use the 9, the 13, the 21, and also the 50, 50, 100, 200. But I want to specifically focus on the voodoo lines today because you guys are it's sort of simple, just from a topographical view, but it really can be a powerful indicator for where it is you're looking to trade into for a specific pocket, and then have the confidence in order for you to take and trigger that trade. That's the whole point of today's webinar. So that's going to be real cool when we jump into that here in just a second. So this is a slide that I put together. What are the lines and what do the colors mean? It's just a differentiation of how strong the magnet levels can be on the voodoo lines. Okay, so I'm oversimplifying this like crazy. I don't want to use too much of technical jargon and terminology here, but you're always going to look for your engulfing candles. You're going to look for price action psychology and patterns as well, but you're going to see if we're starting to trade into these zones or into these concrete levels. So it's really about meshing these confluence patterns and then starting to determine directional bias based on all the confluence factors that you're getting. If you guys want, you can also later, when you guys get a copy of the webinar, you can pause this and then you can read through this, and then you can also go into the white paper. It would benefit you just so you have an understanding of how these lines are calculated, so you have a better sense and you have more confidence in the tool that it is that you're using. It's kind of like using a power tool. Many of you know that I have a background in construction. It's like using a power tool. You want to make sure that you just understand the instructions before you actually use it, right? Because you can cut off a finger if you don't know what you're doing. All right, some risk management stuff. I won't spend too much time on this. Just take care of your risk, right? Don't put on too much risk when you have $5,000, $1,000 account. Don't put on 50% of your account. You want to try to construct your trade little by little. We like to focus anywhere between a 1 to 2% gain on the account pretty much every single day, but we also don't want to have too much of a drawdown, right? If you're having a 10, 20, 30, 40% drawdown on your account, you're not going to last very long. You really, really not. All right. These are just a couple of these are a couple price action patterns that I myself like to look for. The stronger the engulfing candle, either to the either a bullish engulfing or a bearish engulfing candle, as we're starting to trade into the voodoo line levels, if I start to see a reaction off of that level, that's usually where I'm going to hit my confluence factors, and that's where I'm going to trigger either the long or the short position. So this is really trading 101. It's about the validity of the candle, how strong the candle is, and how much volume is behind that candle. That's really it. That's really it. All right, let's jump into some charts. I'm going to show you the indexes for today. I'll talk very briefly about the price action on the indexes for today. Now, I'll be the first to admit, I did not catch any of this move to the downside. I did catch it, but I was also defending some of my long positions. So we like to be as transparent as humanly possible. I don't want to sit here and say, hey, I put on a $50,000 trade and I rode this down and made $200,000 shorting SPY. That did not happen. But I want to show you at least some of the levels that we have on these charts where you guys can at least identify some of the opportunities. Okay. So I'm going to show you specifically here on TrendSpider first. We'll get rid of some of this. And then I'm going to show you what the voodoo lines look like on TV because they're only available on that platform. So before we even begin, we don't want you after this webinar, right, trigger your curiosity and then go out to buy the voodoo lines because they are expensive, right? And they're $1,000 for you to invest in, and then they're $50 for a maintenance fee every month. So if you are part of our Discord group, you already get this part of the package, right? And how do you get this? Well, you get the analysis from the traders that are already using them, right? So instead of you going out and buying this very expensive tool that can benefit you, you're getting it part of the package. So that week that you guys spend with us, you get more of an engagement of how active we use these indicators, and you get a better sense of how we use them on the battlefield, right? So before anyone jumps and tries to buy the indicator, I would suggest just jumping in for a week with us and seeing how we engage with the indicator when the session is actually live. All right, so let's go here to SPY. These are levels that I set out for myself, right? So these are not the voodoo line indicators quite yet. Remember, we have 4 colors that we're going to detail. We have red, we have white, we have green, and we also have more of a light blue here. So I have my stacks, as everyone can see. We've pulled back quite nicely here on the indexes already. So I'm just going to talk very broadly about the four indexes, and then maybe I'll mention one or two other stocks, and then I'm going to show you the indicator. And then I'm going to show you where we have specific points, and maybe some of you guys are going to start generating ideas of how powerful this can be on the shorter time frames, right? So we want to do broad-based view, then we're going to finite that view, right? We're going to make sure that we have the scope prepared. And then when we start hitting these levels, when we start hitting our alerts, then we can start a plan of attack, right? So let's just go briefly over SPY. SPY had a support level here at 514, that gave up. We also had another support level here at about 509, gave up. We had another support level here at about 505, we gave that up as well, right? So there's a lot of momentum here to the downside. Not to mention all the short positions that really haven't been covering on the indexes. IWM is, I think, even worse in terms of price action. It might be sinking a little bit here after hours as well. But obviously, we're getting a cascading effect. All the momentum and all the EMAs are pointing to the downside. Well, this is the 2-hour time frame. How is this going to help me to scalp? The reason why I'm showing you the 2-hour, and I'll show you here the 1 hour as well, is you just need to have a good sense of where you are for the higher time frames for your major support and resistance levels. Okay. So those major support and resistance levels, you just need to be aware of them. So in my opinion, remember what I said in the beginning, when I'm setting these levels on the chart, I'm the only one that's seeing them. So it doesn't really do much if I'm sharing this with everyone, but I'm the one that's making these support and resistance levels, right? Because they're not mathematically calculated. There's a lot of human error, quite a bit of human error when we're starting to set these support and resistance levels overall. And how many times do we hit a level on a chart or a horizontal plane that you put on your chart and we don't respect it whatsoever? So that's the name of the game here. And this is how we're going to start looking at the market and start trading a little bit more confidently because we're letting the back end computer do the work instead of us, right? Because we're not sitting there, we're not calculating all these percentages, we're not calculating inflows, outflows, and balance flows. We're not doing that, right? We can't do that on a second by second basis. So let the computer do that. Let the algorithm do that. Let the indicator do that. So all in all, I just have a broad-based support, and then I'm going to use some of these levels, and we're going to impose them on the chart with the voodoo lines to see how accurate I was, at least mathematically. So everyone take a snapshot here of SPY. This is SPY on the 1 hour. Right now, I have a close support, I would say right around 495 to about 497. So just looking at this, if you've ever read any technical analysis books, right, this is a very common area that we would call support level, right? And obviously we have momentum here to the downside. This is very, very technical analysis 101. Now let's jump into Qs. I'll go a little bit quicker with the Qs. So a lot of momentum here to the downside. I have support here at 424. So this is my human error support level, right? And then I have another support level down at about 422. So this is just me from experience looking at this and saying, okay, we have some pockets that we're playing into, and then we had a support level right here. All right. So far, we haven't talked about triggers. We haven't talked about potential entry areas. We're going to talk about that as soon as I'm done here with IWM and DIA. So let's go to IWM next. All right, and this looks even worse. So this is literally a falling knife. This is actually not even a falling knife, it's a falling hatchet. So we have this support level right around $193. And then below that, I think that this is a pretty obvious support level. We'll see if that's the case here on the TV chart. So we have a support at right around 190, 191. I think that there was one person that caught, I don't remember if Roy caught a short on YM or DIA, but he did quite well on this position. And he is a voodoo line trader as well. I know he follows this quite extensively. He doesn't join the webinar sessions, but man, the guy's got this down pat. Guy's a ninja with this stuff. All right, so down here at about 191, 190 is where I would consider this a support level, but we're only dealing with the 1 hour time frame. If you're a scalper, you're like, man, 1 hour time frame is too slow for me. I'm usually looking at the 5 and 10 minute. Bear with me. Bear with me. We're going to go over just one more stock here, and maybe we'll do Apple, we'll do Microsoft, but then you guys are going to see how these levels are starting to show themselves and start being a little bit more supportive when you're starting to build a thesis on a trigger for a position. Okay. So now let's go here to DIA. All right, so DIA has a really, really strong support level here at about 377, but I think that the most obvious one is going to be down here at 372. I think we can all agree on this one, right? Because that's a very, very strong pivot point, and we had strong engulfing there. All right, so we went over the indexes. We have more or less a broad sense of where some of these pocket support levels are for some institutional trades, right? Because as a scalper, I know that a lot of us experience this. Sometimes there's just no volume or there's no volatility, and we're really not getting a spark, right, when we're putting on a trade. It seems like theta is coming out of those contracts, and we're really sitting on a duck, right? That's not doing much. So now this is where the indicator starts really, really to take its breath and starts presenting itself as potential points of opportunities. So I'm going to show you the chart. It is a little aggressive when we first look at it, but you do get used to it. There actually is a fifth category of support and resistance lines, but I don't even include it on my chart because it's it's too minutia of detail. All right, so let's jump here. This is what the voodoo lines are going to look like. So remember, in our hierarchy, the fire line is usually going to be the strongest level of support or resistance. So we're not looking at any fire lines right now on the cues. But notice we jumped down from the 1 hour time frame all the way down to the 30-minute time frame. Usually the 30-minute time frame, I'm looking to see if we're trading into these support or resistance levels. So at least I'm aware of them. Because if you're all the way in the 1 minute time frame, you don't have such a good sense of where these support and resistance levels are. You do have the voodoo lines here. You can see the tree line right there. You can see the skyline here. You can see the snow line here, but we're not going to see any fire lines for a hot minute here on the cues. So you just want to be aware of where they are. So what do these lines mean, right? These lines are normally going to be magnet levels where price action is starting to trade into, and they serve as stronger points of potential resistance or potential support. So you can take a little bit of the guessing game out when you're looking to scalp. So we jumped all the way into the 1 minute time frame. I'm usually not living here. I'm usually in the 5, but let's go back to the 30 and let's specifically go to SPX. Actually, you know what? SPX is it's a little bit of a bigger trading account. But here, let's just check out some of these levels. If we're looking to take any sort of position here, you guys remember some of the levels that I gave you there on SPY. Here we have more of an abundance amount of information, and this can be a lot to take in. You can manage these overall levels. You can plot them on your chart. You can swap in and out of them. That's very easy. And as you guys can see, I have my alert levels that I set for myself right here. So you can plot them on your chart. Easy, easy peasy here, right? But the thing that I want you to pay attention to is if you're using your support and resistance lines that the algorithm is doing for you, you're removing some of the mental engagement that you have on doing your technical analysis. Now, if you're also using, let's just say, a potential squeeze indicator like the one that we're going to give you here for free, I use something called the RAF. This does come with a price tag, but the squeeze indicator is going to work exactly the same way. It's just presented to you a little bit differently. When we're looking at these potential support and resistance levels, we can start building an overall thesis on whether we want to take the short or whether we want to take the long, so on and so forth. So let's just check this out. Let's just analyze SPY for the last couple days, and we'll just do this on the 30-minute time frame, and then we'll start building a little bit lower. On the 30-minute time frame, we have this potential support and resistance level right on the snow line at $524. So just check this out. If you're engaging with these lines, of course, they're not going to give you the answers to the test, right? That's not how trading works. But you can start to infer that maybe we're looking at this level of resistance support. It really depends on how price action is trading into these levels. So here, there's an obvious rejection. So we also have a second rejection here on that 30-minute time frame, and then we're looking for that third rejection. This is already quite interesting. Now, this is sort of unfair because we had that war news that came out, right? So that geopolitical conflict right now is the driving force why we're overall enveloping in the market and we're pulling back here 5%. But let's just say that that's not on the table right now. We're just looking at the 30, 15-minute time frame. This is already presenting us somewhat of a blurry roadmap of where we can start trading into for potential support and resistance levels. And I can tell you after using this for about 6 to 8 months, actually the first week that I bought this indicator for myself, I've already made the money back. I spent quite a bit of money on these indicators, but it did pay for itself quite quickly. But I don't want you to think, hey, if I purchase this indicator, I'm going to find these support and resistance levels and it's going to be down pat. It's going to be trading on easy mode. Nope, that's not how it works. The way that it works is it gives you a guiding sort of map where you can potentially find that support or resistance levels, and then you can take that as your trigger. So in my personal opinion, If we were starting to look at this on some of the shorter time frames, let's just say the 30-minute time frame, I would have taken this as a potential rejection area, and then I would follow through with that engulfing candle. So take notice. It's not that I'm only using the voodoo line. It's not that I'm taking everything off the chart. I'm not using my squeezes. I'm not using my stacks. I'm not using my RAF. I'm not using my MAC. It has nothing to do with that. I'm using this as an additional layer of confirmation of either a rejection or a support level. So this is a pretty good example of where that took place, right? If you're following through your procedures for your stop losses, if you're adhering to the risks that the risk guidelines that we give for you guys, 10, maybe 15% drawdown. If I'm wrong on this position, all it is that I'm looking for is an additional trigger right around this zone. So this would be a really, really good example. So I'm talking about the larger time frames, but as you guys can see, when we're looking to trade into the more significant levels, the more significant tree line levels, the more significant snow line levels, and more particularly when we're trying to trade down into the fire line levels, right, which are going to be the most significant support and resistance levels. When we're starting to trade into those pockets, that's where we really want to start paying attention because we might get a reaction off of those particular zones. So I know you guys don't care about the 2 hour, 1 hour. Now let's jump into the smaller time frames because that's where really the magic starts to happen, right? And I want to be very, very careful. I want to be careful with the terminology that I use here because it's not trading in the market on easy mode. Nothing to do with that. It just gives you a little bit more confidence and a little bit more, I would say, a little bit more hardening for you to make a decision overall. So you're not just throwing things at the wall and seeing what's going to stick, right? It's more about you engaging with the levels and then having that support, not only with the indicator, but with us as well that we're using it, having that support and that confidence in order for you to buy that call or that put. So we'll focus here on SPY. Actually, we'll do SPX because I made $600 on this long position today. So we'll do SPX. All right, and now let's actually go into the time frames that you guys are interested in. So there's a lot going on here. It's a literal barcode, right? So when I'm looking at this, I want to try to have a level-headed head as much as humanly possible. And then I'm looking at my key supports and my key resistance levels. Notice that we had a support level here at this tree line, right? So we bounced off this tree line quite a few times, right? So that acted as somewhat of a support. So you're not only using that tree line and then automatically taking that trigger as a long or a short position. You need to use that confirmation that I talked about in just a couple slides ago. You need to use your bullish engulfing, and then you want to start using, if you have an oscillating indicator that you use as well, either an RSI, a MACD, in my case, the Ready Aim Fire, or if you're using the TTM squeeze, that $700 indicator, then you want to just use it in conjunction with one another. So if I'm looking at this on the 15-minute time frame on SPX, you can bet your bottom dollar that I would have looked to take a long position on this when we were starting to get some of the confluence factors here. So just check this out, right? It's very easy to analyze stocks as time has gone by, but in this situation, it lines up incredibly, incredibly well. So the tree line is going to be second in line for that support or resistance level. So check this out. We consolidated here for quite a few times. We had about 3 or 4 touches. So I didn't get the confirmation for the long until we started squeezing here on my RAF indicator. Cool. So that RAF indicator, when it started to squeeze, realistically in this situation, holistically, I would have approached this the following way. I would have set my support level just below where we were starting to flicker, right? And if we start breaking that support level lower, then I'm out of the trade. I'm out for 5, 10% loss, whatever it is. In my situation, I'm trading 1 to 3 DTE, so I don't have to worry about it. So I set my stop loss or my OCO order. And if this starts to move in my favor, what are going to be my target levels? Well, I don't have to guess anymore. I already know what my target levels are. So if my entry level is here, my first target is going to be that skyline level. So remember, we have that hierarchy. Out of all of the support levels and resistance levels, the skyline level is going to be lowest on the totem pole. So this is just, first of all, going to be one of my first target levels. I don't have to guess. Then my second target level is going to be right here. Cool. So this is very easy to follow with. And this is what we do for our morning sessions. And when I'm looking to take a scalp as well, this is how I'm approaching it. And then what's going to be my third target if I'm looking to trim or just overall hold my position? Well, if you're following our methodology, not only are we looking to guarantee this as a win for a trade because we're moving up our stop loss, but I'm looking for that potential rejection area where we had that before here on that snow line. Do you guys see? So I'm using these parameters. I'm using these because when we're taking them off, you're literally swimming in the ocean without a flashlight in the dark, right? That's literally what it feels like. So when I'm taking off my voodoo or my micro voodoo lines, depending on what it is that you're trading, there is a difference. We don't want to get too much enveloped into that. But when we're looking just to trade off of the chart, all of this black matter or dark matter, I should say, all of this dark matter or black abyss, you really don't have a guiding light and really a roadmap of where you can look for resistance or some support. The voodoo lines provide that. And that's what we've been trading off of. And this is what's giving us a little bit more confidence in either holding a position or just letting it go, right? Price action obviously is going to be the most strongest determining factor. But this really, really gives you a foothold on where you can hold a position to hold those potential longs or shorts for a little bit more time. And if you do start to engulf in the opposing direction, we're just following our methodology, which is we're moving up our stop losses and we're already setting the parameters of if we get stopped out on the trade, that's it. And that happened exactly here for this situation. So we had this situation actually occur a couple of times, right? Because we've been really, really falling here in the market. So some of you guys are maybe starting to get a little bit more curious and where we can start using this on even the shorter time frames. So now let's jump into the 5 minute on SPX. And I'm giving you guys very, very specific scenarios, but you can already extrapolate this and then start putting it and imposing it on some of the other charts that you guys are using. Now, just be aware, this is not going to work for every single stock that trades in the stock market. They focus on just a handful of stocks, and usually they're the ones that have either more volume. And of course, we're going to focus on the indexes, in particular commodities and also the futures trades. This works extremely well for those, right? We have an entire list of things that you can apply these on. But now let's jump here into the 5 minute time frame. And let's look at the voodoo lines again. So as you're starting to go deeper in your scope, right? As you're starting to go a little bit more down the rabbit hole, the lines start to be a little bit clearer. So as a scalper, I think that this presents an incredible, absolutely incredible opportunity for you guys just to know where these support and resistance levels can take you. So we're going to talk about a couple of these now, right? So if I wanted to take just let's say I wanted to take or I had a bias for a position, and I found myself as I'm using this more and more, I really don't have too much of a bias anymore with going into any particular trades. I let the confirmations and I let the indicators tell me if I want to take this long or short. Because to be perfectly honest, I don't give a shit if it's going up or if it's going down. If I can make money and follow through the paces and the steps that I need to, and I'm getting the confirmation of either a long or short, I'm going to follow suit with that. And I know that a scalper will really appreciate that because a scalper doesn't care what direction we're going. A scalper just cares about movement. All right, so we have this support level here at $5,100, right? Or 5,100 on SPX. We were looking to trade into the zone, but the amount of momentum that we have to the downside constituted 100% a break. There's no questions asked, right? So as I'm looking at this, some of you might be thinking, hey, Sage, that's a snow line. Shouldn't that be a support level? Well, let's look at some of the other factors, right? Are we looking at a bullish or a bearish engulfing candle? In this situation, I think we're looking at continuation to the downside, and there's some bearish engulfing as we're starting to trade into that support. So that nullifies the support range on that snow line. And also, I really wasn't getting a trigger for a long there. So I'm using price action mainly to decide whether I do want to partake in this position or not. So remember, this is going to be either or. It's either going to be a support or resistance level, but it's not an end all be all. You have to use additional factors in order for you to decide that. So this is really, really interesting here. 5 minute time frame started breaking. We broke below two support levels here, but now we're starting to trade into a more significant support level on the hierarchy of the voodoo lines, right? So that's going to be your tree line. And just so you guys are aware, we're pretty far away from the fire line. Some of you guys might be thinking, holy crap, we might be close to a fire line here. I'm going to put $25,000 on this trade. I don't suggest that, but in my mind, as I'm looking at this, I like to look at the fire lines because those are where I can probably look to take little bit heftier positions, right? So I just want to throw that out there. Let's go back here into reality because I don't think we're going to be hitting the fire line anytime soon. So right now we're here at a tree line. So what's going on here at this tree line? We broke below it. Don't think that we hit these levels and then we start bouncing off those levels absolutely perfectly. That's never going to happen. Never going to happen. But it provides you a guideline. Where can we look to either pivot or where can we look to get a reaction off of, right? So we swept below this. Now, if you want greater context, 30-minute time frame, I'm just jumping out and I'm seeing, is this a support level that maybe I would engage with if I'm just doing my own technical analysis? Probably I would actually. So this is a previous resistance level that might act as a support level. So we might get a reaction here off of this tree line. So if I'm looking at the computer, I know some of us get very exhausted when we're looking at the computer minute on end and we can't do anything else because we're afraid we're going to miss an opportunity. If you're a scalper, you know exactly what I'm talking about. This eliminates a lot of that for you. What you're going to do is you're going to look at the tree line level. And then if you are getting either a squeeze on the TTM, a squeeze here, or you're getting a bullish engulfing candle, bearish engulfing candle, that's when you can look to start acting on the position. So really, you're taking a lot of the guesswork out of the equation, right? Because you already know where the support and resistance levels are. Now, if we start to break a little bit lower, I totally agree with the snow line level right here at that 49.65 level, right? So as I'm talking about levels, as I'm starting to decide whether I do want to scalp it or not, I jump back here to the 30-minute time frame, but now I'm going to jump here into the 5. So this 5-minute time frame, what am I going to use in order for me to decide whether I want to go long or short here? Well, tomorrow I'm going to be looking for a signal on my RAF. I'm going to be looking for some bullish engulfing. And what are some of the levels that I'm going to target? This should be very easy. You guys should probably pick up on this quicker than how I'm explaining it. My first target is going to be right here at 50, 48, 50, 50, right? And then my second target is going to be right there. And then my third target and probably ultimate target is going to be all the way up at 50, 70. And you see how that works? But it's only going to work out if I'm also jumping into this trade and I'm setting my parameters even before I jump into the position. So what would be my parameter if I do have a long bias in this situation? I'm going to set my stop loss probably right here, right? So I'm going to set that there. If I trigger that stop loss, then I'm starting to look for an entry closer to the snow line. Do you guys see how we're starting to use this? Do you guys see how we're starting to think through these trades? So that's what I'm going to do here. And this is how we're providing more confidence when we're looking to take a position or not. I know that this has really, really settled my nerves because I take a lot of that guessing game out of the equation. So if I do start to break that low, then I don't care what it does in the interim. All I care about is if it's starting to trade into a more significant voodoo line. In this case, it's going to be the 49.65 level. Now, if we do start moving in the direction of my bias, if we do start moving up, my first level is going to be here at 50-50 again. And then on top of that, I'm looking at, I'm sorry, what level? 50-50. And then 50-60. And then above that, sorry, my eyes are going, guys. So I'm sorry, I have to get close here. And then 50-75. Cool. So that's how you're going to start setting specific parameters and how you can have a little bit more confidence when you're looking to take your position overall. So of course, we talked about long bias positions. Now let's actually talk about maybe 2 or 3 occasions where we're looking to take this short. We're already 40 minutes in. This won't take too long. I promise you guys I'll wrap this up. I don't want to go over an hour, but this is really, really interesting stuff, especially when you're looking at this from a case by case basis. Now we're going to look at a potential short position, right? Because we talked about snow lines and tree lines as supports. Now let's look at them as resistance. So we're going to jump here into the cues. So now we have a couple of levels that we want to pay attention to overall. So on the 30-minute time frame, check this out. That's the the tree line, right? So this tree line right here, not only is it going to act right as we're looking to trade into this particular level, in this particular situation, it was a rejection level. So remember, these lines, they're either a support or resistance levels backed up by what price action is doing as we're approaching them. That's how you need to look at this. It's not just because you're trading into the snow line, it's going to be the support. Obviously, that was not the case here. These are just the zones where you can look to target entries. That is the takeaway here, where you can look to target entries. So on the 30-minute time frame, we rejected close to this $440 level. Now let's jump into here to the 5. So we had that first initial rejection right there. And then I did get a signal to take this short here. So what would be my targets to the downside? So in my opinion, the first target to the downside is going to be here at 437.65. And we already have that parameter set by the skyline that we're using for our voodoos. Now, if you chose to hold on to this position, the additional parameter for your stop loss, very easy. You're going to set that stop loss right about here. So remember, the way that I do this, I'm doing my 1 to 3 DTE. So I don't have to really, really cut the position so quickly because it's not bouncing from negative 50% to positive 80% in a split heartbeat, right? It's not moving that quickly. So that's just me. I just wanted to throw that in there. If you are a hardcore scalper and you're doing your zero DT, then maybe you want to set your parameter a little bit closer to the chest, right? So something like that. So as I'm starting to get that candle rejection at that snow line, I'm looking for that continuation to my first target, 437. Then my second target, very easy. There it is. It's 435.60. And then below that, it's going to be my snow line level. So we obviously moved into this level. This is a little too is a little bit too situational because we're selling off of geopolitical stuff, not so much of fundamentals on the stock market. There might be a mix of that, but overall, you guys can see where the strategy lies. This is what I want you to pay attention to. The strategy within lies where these target levels are laid out for you, so you don't have to do too much of the guesswork. So in this situation, I probably would have looked to take the continuation here. As soon as we started consolidating, probably would have broken out. I have not taken this trade. I wasn't looking at the market when this was going on, but excuse me, a lot of our scalpers, especially our morning session guys, they're absolutely killing it with these positions. I know one particular trader for us is absolutely murdering gold. This works quite well on gold too. Works well on gold, silver, commodities, oil. It works well on the indexes. It works well on futures. So you guys get the gist. You guys get the picture. It's not necessarily that you're going to throw out everything that you already know as a trader if you have some experience. Some of you might be saying, well, I'm not a profitable trader, so I don't know how far my experience can take me. Well, if you're using a tool like this, and remember, it is a tool. It's not it's not the cheat code, right? It's not the cheat code to life. It's not the cheat code to you, tripling, quadrupling, 10xing your account. It's not necessarily that. But what it will provide you is a better handle on how you make decisions in the market. And hopefully I was able to convey that to you guys, right? When I take them off, then I feel a little bit lost, to be perfectly honest. I don't feel as comfortable as I once was taking scalp positions now that I'm using this particular indicator. So this, my stack EMAs or SMAs, and then I also like using the ready aim fire. The ready aim fire is a higher ticket item, but I'll be perfectly honest, it's the same thing as the indicator that I'm going to show you guys now, where you guys can get that for free. So I'm going to start concluding here. Hopefully, right? Hopefully, with the examples that I gave you, we went over maybe about 3 or 4 of them. I was able to convey to you guys the strategy that we're using to implement for the entries and also for the exits and also the target levels where we're looking to cut our positions or trim our positions. So we went over the broad-based levels, so the higher time frames. We just want to know where those I would say those support and resistance levels where they have better footings. So we want to be aware of our tree and our, of course, fire lines. But then realistically, we're going to start trading within our snow lines as well. So the closer we get to our snow lines, that's where I'm starting to pay attention for an interim scalp, right? I'm going to be jumping into the 30-minute time frame, and then I'll use the 15 and then the 5, and then I'm really, really going to get finite with my entries, and then use my engulfing candles, use my short-term indicators in conjunction with the voodoo lines, and then I'm looking to strike. I'm looking to strike.